Justified in questions, justified in getting answers. Matt Palumbo and Booker Scott are justified. This is the PB&J podcast.
Democracy never lasts long. It soon wastes, exhausts, and murders itself. There was never a democracy yet that did not commit suicide. Those are the words of the second president and a founding father of this nation, John Adams. And you have to wonder, with the Democrat Socialists of America, is that where we are? Does America now have a gun to its head? Or is there a silver lining anywhere? I'm Booker Scott. This is the PB&J podcast. The co-host for this hour is Matt Palumbo. He's a best-selling author. And as always, with a salute, he is also the former content director of the Bongino Report. Matt, how was your week? We are back here together this weekend, and there's a lot to discuss. As always, we started this hour with suicide of America. Yeah. Is that where we are right now? Do you sense that?
Well, I think the ideal form of government would be a dictator who happens to agree with me on everything. But I don't know if we're ever going to get that. So I guess.
Well, what about the other people, if that's the case?
Well,
anybody else matter?
Mainly speaking for me, but I don't think that's going to happen. So democracy, as flawed as it is, was it Chesterton who said, or not Chesterton, Churchill who said it's the worst system ever and also the best one we have. So that's kind of where I'm at with it. We have, democracy. The case for it is sort of the wisdom of the crowds, and that if you put a lot of minds together, you do tend to get the right answer. And there are all these crazy examples. Like if you show a picture of an elephant and you have 1,000 people guess at the weight and you average together their answers, you actually get the exact answer a very large percentage of the time. And you can extrapolate from that. Well, if we can get answers like that, well, then surely with national issues, if you put everyone's heads together, on average, we should come to the right conclusion. But there are also, that's in a vacuum. And we are in an environment where the media lies to everyone and people have their own biases that kind of cloud the truth. And people are selfish, and that does disrupt that. So there are obviously flaws with democracy. And even furthermore, you can radically change people's stances on an issue just by omitting a single variable or changing how a polling question is done. I think we were talking about this in California, how there's going to be a voter ID question on the ballot, and they framed it as, the thing would stop people from voting who don't have an ID.
Proposition 39.
Because they know people are going to read that and their mind is going to fixate on the stopping people from voting part without realizing, well, it's people who shouldn't be voting. Or if you poll really any issue, which is should the government spend more money on something, the answer is almost unanimous, or not unanimous, a super majority to say yes. Free healthcare? Sure. Free college? Sure. If you add a clause of you spend an extra $2,000 a year in taxes, then everyone turns against it. And it could be the same person answering both questions will have a radically different answer, even though it's basically the same thing. So, democracy, I guess to tie it all together, when everyone has good information, as little bias as possible, democracy can be the best system you ever have. But we have an environment where every show except ours is lying to people. So,
well, that piece that I started this hour with was written by Les Rubin on Fox News Digital. That was where that John Adams quote came from. He went on to say that Adams understood that free societies and not are not only destroyed by foreign enemies, they can also be weakened from within through complacency, indifference, and the gradual abandonment of the principles that made them successful. America's founders spent years studying history and learning from the greatest political, economic, and philosophical thinkers who came before them. They deliberately created a constitutional republic built upon limited government, fiscal responsibility, individual liberty, and the protection of the unalienable rights of life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. And then you look around at the Democrat Socialists of America and the way that many people feel right now. And I'll throw, I'm sorry, wrong one there. Let me grab the right one. The way people feel right now about socialism. There we go. Democrats identify 34% of the time as a socialist right now. And a little bit later, we're going to talk about some key races coming up in this midterm election. And I want to use that number of 34% to tie it back in to what we will talk about when we look at Michigan and Wisconsin and even Texas with Paxton and Tallarico here in a few minutes. But I did want to just throw that up there for you real quick to see what we're up against, because is that the gun that's pointed at Americans' head right now? 34% of Americans, or Democrats, I should say, they think they're socialists.
Yeah,
and I can't believe that.
The thing that's crazy about our socialists is they are, well, I should step back a second. I saw a poll recently that something like between 75 and 80% of people that support socialized medicine, Medicare for all, or whatever you want to call it, believe you can fund it only by taxing billionaires. Now, you could confiscate every billionaire on the planet's or in the country's money, even including Musk when he was a trillionaire, and you're barely even funding the government for a year. Like, there's just not enough money just for that. In countries like Scandinavia, or in Scandinavian countries, I should say, it's not a country. In Sweden, the lowest tax bracket is 32%. Our highest federal tax bracket is 32%. And there's no standard deduction. So you're making minimum wage in Sweden, you're paying 32%. The sales tax is 25%. And then there's also miscellaneous regulatory, impacts, or they have regulations that increase prices. Those are basically taxes. There's property tax, there's local tax. So you're paying 60%, even if you're on the lower end of the income scale in those kind of countries. But you get the stuff free.
Everything's free, though, right?
But here's the thing that's even crazy.
60%, but
like the rates at which poor people go to college in Denmark, Sweden, Norway, it's very similar to America. So it's like they're paying all these taxes. A lot of them, there's a class difference in college attainment. So they're not even really taking advantage of it. And my point is that the Democratic Socialists, they're bizarrely fine with, like, they'll preach lower taxes on the middle class and the poor. And it's like, well, first of all, we can't even afford your program if we raise taxes on the rich. You're also trying to pretend to be fiscally conservative, but in a way that even fundamentally bankrupts the nation at a faster rate. So they just have no idea what their policies are going to cost. And if you were going to ask these people, like, what exact percent tax increase do you want and how much revenue will it bring in? They don't have an answer. And they have all these things. Oh, we're going to tax capital gains more, or we're going to tax stock transactions. Okay, well, there's stock exchanges are international. You can trade other other markets. Sweden, I believe, had tried a financial transaction tax, and what happened? No one traded stocks on their stock exchange anymore. Like, there's all these ways to get around those very niche taxes, or taxing net worth. It becomes abstract. Like, if you're a billionaire and you have $50 million worth of paintings, how are we valuing that? Are we getting that appraised? And are you telling me that process can't be abused? Like, it's just, they really have no plan. It's just to promise the world. And it's not possible. Mamdani, to give one last example.
Yeah. We got him up on the screen there.
Was promising free bus rides. And the thing that's hilarious is it's sort of like no tax on tips, and that, well, no one was really paying them in the first place. When I was a tip worker, I sure as hell wasn't. But no one in New York was paying for the bus anyway. So there's no way to make it free when no one's paying. So now he had to rebrand it to, like, yeah, they're going to go faster. And then the public sector unions are now against it because if the buses go faster, it's less overtime for their employees. So it's just, everything's a total mess. And it's been 100 years of this stuff failing.
Well, Mamdani and his staff, they pledged allegiance to defend China and for the survival of Chinese socialism. And it's a critical matter, Mamdani says. But let's leave him alone. And you mentioned that Elon Musk is no longer a trillionaire, and we didn't talk about it last week, but the stock went from the high of 235.
It's like 110 now or something.
Right, 110, 115. So he is no longer a trillionaire. And I saw this week on Twitter, he even made a joke about that. But
yeah,
he's not hurting for cash.
It's funny because when he became a trillionaire, the discourse is, well, think of X, Y, and Z that could be bought with that money. And they acted like he's like the dragon from Lord of the Rings and he's just hoarding all this gold. And when it dipped below $1 trillion, I'm thinking, well, can you guys explain how people did anyone get richer from this? Well, of course not. So he wasn't taking it from anyone. But no, I
just found it interesting that he's now worth $500 billion.
But it's one of those things where, net worth is kind of theoretical depending on what you're invested in. If you have $100,000 in McDonald's stock, it's fair to say your net worth $100,000. If you own, I
don't know. Have you seen the price of a Big Mac lately?
True. But if you own a company,
$20.
If you're like Musk and you own, I don't know the exact percent, but let's say 50% of a company worth $2 trillion. Is there a buyer that can buy a block of $1 trillion of stock off you? Probably not. And the percent of the stock that's trading relative to the market value is a fraction of it's very, very small. So it's one of those things where, yes, on paper he was worth that, but there was never a market large enough to actually be able to absorb him converting that into cash. But I don't want to bore people with this finance stuff.
Okay, well, let's move on. Let's talk about Anthony Fauci. I had no expectation of the hearing that took place this week, but I think my expectation was that he would not plead the fifth 111 times.
Yeah.
And that was pretty much the highlight. I think the Republican senators did a great job, though, of painting the picture of what happened. Unfortunately, like so many other things, the mainstream media isn't covering it. They didn't cover any of it. So the people that need to hear it aren't hearing it.
Yeah.
And for all of us that are celebrating what the Republican senators did and bringing out the truth about Fauci and COVID and everything that we went through, it just doesn't matter because so many people didn't hear it or see it.
Yeah, it was good that they did outline the reasons why he was there, even knowing he wasn't going to answer. And I know all of these hearings kind of are usually just theater, and obviously this is no exception. But it was theater with good information, where a lot of liberals just simply don't know what he lied about or why people are even upset with him. And they did a very good job. I wish they asked him questions like, "Do you love your wife?" or things like that to make it even more awkward. But the only liberal response I saw to him pleading the fifth 111 times is this guy, he was arguing, well, no, actually, he only pled the fifth once because that applies to all the questions. He was just repeating himself. And I'm like, oh, all right, you really cracked the case there.
He probably should not made a statement at the beginning because I believe that could possibly open him up. And Rand Paul and other legal scholars are saying, well, he was compelled to tell the truth, and he has a pardon, so there's no reason why he can't tell the truth on everything that he did as NIH director. Mm-hmm. The issue is he has lied under oath, and if now with the diary, Dear Diary with Fauci, with the diary coming out, we have all of the truth. It's all there. Everything that Fauci did was in the diary. And with all of that coming out, now he puts himself in a position to perjure himself, which could mean, 6 months, a year, or longer in prison?
Yeah, like if Steve Bannon,
And Steve Bannon, that was in contempt of Congress, which they can still go after now because he did not tell the truth on the questions that he was asked. Let's go to this at the beginning of the trial, toward the beginning of the hearing, I should say. You had Rand Paul having to get after Fauci's attorney. I thought this was
good.
An interesting part of it.
Proceedings. And so, look, this is the way Anthony Fauci wants to be remembered, for a lawyer not listening to the rules. That's the way you want to be remembered, and that's what you're going to do. You are not recognized, sir. Security, please remove him from the room.
This guy couldn't just shut his mouth at all. He had to keep going. So that was at the beginning. That was
I
at
love
the
that.
beginning.
I love that Laura Ingram is behind him. Is he hated her in the diary so much, and you know she did that for that reason. So that was it was good.
I saw that. Another entertaining part was Bernie Moreno. He is a new senator. He won in 2024 from Ohio. Which, by the way, there's an interesting race for the Senate in Ohio for what used to be J.D. Vance's seat. You have Husted there in Ohio. He seems to be trailing in some of the polls, but you see a lot of the Republicans going to Ohio right now trying to get support for him so that they don't lose that seat. Husted was appointed after J.D. Vance became the vice president. Let's go to Bernie Moreno, and I think this is probably the exchange that everybody has seen by now. And I do want to caution you, if you have children, you may want to watch it if some words will offend you.
Yes.
I decided to leave this in because it was a senator saying it, and he said it on national television. So we're going to play it here on the PB&J podcast.
And having met a Kardashian than the suffering of the American people, and that is you. Your advice to communities like that, to idiotic politicians who enforce those rules, arrested that mom for watching a football game with her own family outside. When that story broke, I said to myself, I cannot stand idly on the side and watch this happen. It was about 6 years ago today that I decided I'm going to give up my businesses, sell them all, run for office, run for the United States Senate. Here I am sitting in front of you 6 years later saying, who the fuck do you think you were for doing that?
Best question in the entire hearing. Best question.
Yeah, it was good. Yeah, and
the arrogance of Fauci is incredible to me. He was arrogant the entire time. I think we all knew it. And now he's as arrogant as he ever was. And you have people on the left coming to his defense. Harvey Levin of TMZ, he's out there crying about it. And
I know.
It's disgusting, really.
It's amusing in that liberals all have this fantasy or this idea in their head that if they were alive in the times of Nazi Germany, they would have been the guys who stood up to him and roused up. And I'm like, you couldn't even stand up to your own government when they were putting people out of business. You cheered all of this on. Like, you were reporting people for going to church or getting a haircut. There was polling showing that I believe it was a majority, at least, of Democrats were in favor of putting people in jail who wouldn't get vaccinated with the COVID vax or vaccinate their kids. Like, crazy stuff on the left. And they were all on board with the hysteria. And that's how you'd act in that situation, was how they acted.
We had about 1.2 million deaths in America with COVID. And you have Fauci, if you read his diary and the things that he was concerned about, it wasn't about Americans. And I think that it has, it affected all of us as we went through it. People lost jobs. We had family members die. I had an uncle die in assisted living that no one in the family could be around. He died by himself. And that was because of Anthony Fauci. You have our children that missed 2 years of school, and we don't know the effects of that. And who knows if we ever will.
Well, we already sadly do have some impact in that if you look, like, kids can't read anymore. And it's a phenomenon of the past 5 years where, like, even just one paragraph of text is too much for kids. I go on the teachers subreddit on Reddit just for my own amusement. So it's usually like kooky liberals, but throughout reading their kookiness for my own amusement, I've come across this recurring theme of kids can't read anymore, and it seems to be COVID onward. So we have seen that. But when it comes to Fauci's diary, it's this weird juxtaposition where he'll begin an entry. It'll be like 900,000 dead. And the next line, met Kim Kardashian today. What the fuck? Who the F do you think you are? It's just a good question. Anyway.
It was disgusting. I don't think that I don't know what will come out of it. Hopefully they will put him in prison, just like they did Peter Navarro and who else? Steve Bannon was another one that didn't go testify. And, that's exactly what Fauci did. He showed up, but he did not answer any of the questions that he was protected on the pardon because he knows that he lied. And that's why he did it. You don't give someone a pardon unless they're guilty of something.
I can't remember, did you mention this when you were talking about Rand Paul, that there is serious question over if you actually legally can plead the fifth in this situation?
I don't know. I don't
know either, but I have seen it. So.
Well, I've read about it, and I don't see, where any legal scholars agree. Okay. Some people say he can, some people say they can't. So I'm not sure. But a reporter caught up with Bernie Moreno the next day after the hearing, and here's what that exchange looked like.
Senator Moreno, why do you suspect Fauci's pleading the fifth after testifying 200 plus times before?
Because he's a piece of shit.
Thank you.
Man, guy does not care at all.
No, and
great.
I couldn't have said it better.
Yeah.
I could not have said it better.
That's so good. He really is horrible. I just can't believe that 2020 was a fever dream. And then on top, I mean, once we were 15 days into 14 days to slow the spread or whatever, we're 1 day past whatever it was. That was my first moment of like, oh God, everything's a lie.
Why did you have to bring that up? 14 days to stop the spread. I had forgotten that. That's out of my memory.
But then the real, everyone's insane was during the Black Lives Matter protests when every media group was like, experts say that the threat of white supremacy actually exceeds the threat of the virus. And I'm like, as of today, like if this thing that's been hurting the nation for 400 years, why not back in January? Why this exact moment when a guy overdosed on fentanyl?
Well, anyway, now after you said that, think about the Southern Poverty Law Center that created white supremacy and how nicely that fit into that narrative along the way. Yeah. And you wonder, is all of this by design to get us to a point of socialism? And then that brings us to this midterm election that we have coming up. Put up here a chart now that kind of shows the trend over the last, this year. And you see that the Republicans at the beginning of the year, they had a fantastic chance of holding on to both the Senate and the House. But as the year has gone along, we see that crosses. And now the Democrats probably will win the House the way it looks now. But I think there are roads for the Republicans to maintain power, which would really be something if they were able to do that, considering it's a midterm election, which normally that doesn't work out well for the party that has the executive branch, whether that's Donald Trump, Joe Biden, or whoever. I mentioned, did I mention the Tea Party? Let's talk about the Tea Party real quick, because I think in some ways that this Democrat Socialists of America, we can look at them as a Tea Party in a way. I don't know, Matt, when you look at the numbers, and we threw them up there earlier about the 34% of Democrats identify as socialist, independents are nowhere near that kind of number on the socialism issue. They are 60, 70, 75% against socialism, and that's where elections are won. And that's why I say there may be that window of opportunity for the House of Representatives to stay as a Republican House. Right now, everything I see looks like 222 to 213 in favor of the Democrats. The Republicans, I believe, will maintain power. But we're going to get into some races here, because I think there are a couple of very key races that will really tell us, and I think this could be the silver lining that we could take away from this midterm election. And that's going to be the Michigan Senate race and the Wisconsin governor race. I think those two are really, really important. You have a Democrat socialist in Hong. What's her name? Francesca Hong. Yeah, she is a state representative now. She is leading the polls on the Democrat side of the primary, which is coming up here in the next week. She's winning by 38%. So she's going to become the Democrat nominee. She is going to be running against Tom Tiffany, who is a really good Republican representative in the House of Representatives. It's going to be a real tell about the people of Wisconsin. Wisconsin has always been, a backstop. It has been a key state when it comes to elections, national elections. It's a swing state, obviously, or it used to be. They have had Republican governors, so there is the opportunity that Tom Tiffany will win. And I think if he does, then that kind of tells us that our country doesn't have a gun to its head right now. We're not ready for suicide. There is some hope there. What are your thoughts there?
Well, she is actually insane. I know I kind of say that about everyone, but she pals around with people like Hassan Piker, who your audience probably doesn't know who that is. Congratulations. I'm sorry for ruining it for you. He's He's the nephew of Cenk Uygur from the Young Turks, but he like idolizes Mao Zedong and dresses up as Mao when he gives speeches. He says that America deserved 9/11, and he does like a streaming, so like he just talks to a camera live to an audience, and they submit questions on chat, and he responds and interacts,
kind of like us then.
But he's
crazy.
But he's crazy, yeah. Well, we're not really streaming, I guess. Anyway, but my point being, he has behind him framed the newspaper with from the day after 9/11 of the planes hitting the buildings, and it's not in remembrance. It's because it's something he supports. He has done propaganda for groups like Hezbollah and the Houthis, which he has not registered under FARA for. But there's actually a lot of documentation that he is really being paid by these people. But anyway, she associates with him, and then also, and I'm not trying to attack anyone who has been struggling or anything financially, but within the past few years, she racked up 40 grand in credit card debt and had to have her parents bail her out. I'm sorry, but when you're in your late 30s and you're getting help from your parents and think you can run an entire state, I would say probably not the best idea. And also, like, AOC is a bartender, so we know how that goes when they take office.
Well, yeah, she's going to become president in 2028, according to the polls. We go from a Boston bartender to president of the United States. Why not? And along the way, you happen to be a socialist. Let's go to a video. Let's show Hassan Piker here when Francesca Hong was on his show. Here's this video.
Public grocery stores.
Yes.
Right to repair.
Yes.
Legalizing cannabis.
Yes.
Overturning Citizens United.
Yes.
A workers' bill of rights.
Yes.
A free Palestine.
Yes.
And Francesca Hong is a candidate for Wisconsin governor.
That did not play like I thought it was. So do we need to see that again, or is that good enough?
That's good enough.
Okay, yeah, we get the idea
is there
of what's
anything in
going
that
on
list
there
of what you
with
told
her.
Hassan Piker?
This is her on Fox, I believe.
Yes,
No.
it is. Yeah.
Okay.
Sorry, I missed the last 5 seconds of what she was asked to denounce or something.
Yeah, I don't know. We'll move on from that. I think everybody gets the idea of Francesca Hahn, that she's just another socialist mess.
It's a nut. And every one of them, they're all disasters in their personal lives. And I mean, when it comes to someone running a state or running a country, like, that stuff actually does matter. If your own life is a mess, why are you going to respect someone else's?
Let's go to Michigan, Matt. Let me see if I can add this up here on the video. There we go. This is Al Sayed, which we have talked about in the past, and that is Mike Rogers. Mike Rogers is endorsed by President Trump. We talked about what happened to Mike Rogers in 2024, but this is another one of those races that I believe is so very important for where America is. Are we suicidal, or is there a silver lining? Mike Rogers right now is winning in the polls, and I know polls don't mean anything. You still have an election day. But it looks like this race is still going to be a toss-up. It's really close. I've seen some as high as 8-9% in favor of Mike Rogers, but I've also seen them at 3 or 4%. This is going to be a very important race for all of us to key in on in November.
Yeah, he is also insane. I think I'm probably overusing that word this episode, but he's the guy, if I recall correctly, who did not make a public statement when we took out the Ayatollah of Iran because he thought it would alienate some of his Muslim base. So that's the kind of constituency this guy is cultivating here. And the thing is, too, is his name on the ballot has to be his full legal name. And having a guy on the ballot named Abdul Al bin Muhammad Al Awani, well, whatever, it generally does not help you in the general. That's not his actual name. It's not his actual name, by the way. But my point being, like, there are people who are going to see that and go, no, I'll take the guy with the normal name.
Yeah. But I think it is important to pay attention to this race in Michigan and the one in Wisconsin for that. And then you have the Senate race down in Texas between Paxton and Tallarico. According to all the polls that we're seeing right now, Tallarico has a small lead, probably within the margin of error. I wouldn't read too much into that, though, because Ted Cruz, they said, was in trouble against Beto O'Rourke, and Cruz won by 1 million. Yeah. And Ken Paxton, they say he can't win a statewide race, but he has.
He already had, did before.
I don't understand that argument. That was the argument that John Cornyn was making when they were running in the primary, and then Donald Trump ultimately he did endorse Tallarico. Let me see. I do have
or Paxton, you mean?
Yeah, Paxton. I'm sorry. There we go. There are the polls right now for Tallarico and Paxton. You can kind of see Paxton does lead some of those. And, you know, Matt, last week we talked about the money and how much money the Democrats have or don't have, the lack of money that they have. And I came across something that would corroborate that. And this is from the FEC and from Fox News. And you can see there that this is kind of what you were talking about. Democrats are broke.
Yeah. They were talking about putting their headquarters up as collateral in the past week or so. So that's how bad it is.
Another part of this also is Donald Trump has a war chest of over $400 million in a PAC that he can spend. He has not spent a dime of that yet. So on top of what this is, you also have Donald Trump sitting in the background waiting for to see what races that he should put some help behind because he has a lot of money to do that if money is that important in these races.
One thing that's helping Paxton as well, or Will, is there are a lot of black voters who were, you know, supportive of Jasmine Crockett who are simply not going to vote in this election. I mean, they're not going to vote Republican, but they're not going to vote at all. And she's basically been urging black people not to vote for him. And fine with me. It's, you know, helps us out, so why go for it? I think he's a white supremacist or something. I'm pretending, but
well, Matt, you know, I think sometimes we can look at that financial numbers and we can think, well, the Democrats don't have a shot because they don't have any money. They're broke. And I did see one race in Alaska for the Senate. And in that race, the Republican had about $12 million. And the Democrat had $15 million. So you have to remember that the Senate and these House races are very local races, and the House of Representatives, when it comes down to it, are 435 little local races in communities. And sometimes I think we lose sight of that. So even though the Democrat Party may not have millions and millions of dollars, that doesn't mean candidates don't and PACs behind them have it too.
Trump was outspent by like $1 billion by Harris. I think Hillary it was like 2-1 or something, and he still won. And you know, where I live, or I think it's a district next to mine in the New Jersey State House, the Democrat got outspent 10-1 and still ended up winning. And it was really just she rode Mikey Sherrill's coattails and but also met with a ton of voters. And if you're knocking on every single door in your district, that can be way more effective than an ad. Now, obviously, this is a very local election. You can't do that on scale on a national election. But my point being, money isn't everything. It depends A, how you spend it, and then B, how likable you are, and if you really are meeting with voters. So.
Yeah. Well, let's keep our eye on those races. I think Wisconsin and Michigan are the ones that we should watch to find out where America is. Are we to the point of having a gun to our head and socialism is going to take over? Or is this Democrat Socialist of America nothing more than what the Tea Party was, 15, 20 years ago?
Well, the Tea Party was actually good. So,
well, that's true. I'm talking about as a movement, though.
Yeah.
Are we going to see this movement, eventually collapse and have different factions? Are those of us?
They are already.
Well, the Democrat Party is. I'm talking about the DSA, and I don't like using that term, but I'm talking about saying Democrat Socialist.
Yeah. Well, the problem with the left, their own problem is they are so based on identity that they infinitely subdivide. So they'll be together in socialists, but then it's going to be, well, being a black socialist, it's harder to be us than a white socialist. And then someone's going to go, well, as a black woman, it's far harder being a black woman socialist than a black male socialist. And then you're gonna keep going down where you have like a black indigenous Native American in a wheelchair who's like, actually, it's way harder to be me. And you just it'll fracture like crazy. You see that too. Anytime like the New Democratic Party in Canada, the DSA in America, if you watch their annual meetings and the issues that get debated and brought up, it is comedy gold. You're going, okay, these people may get power, but it is going to implode spectacularly, God willing.
Well, coming up, we're going to have a sports segment. I know you will look forward to that, Matt.
I live for it. Yeah.
You're like, yay, sports all the time. But I think you will like this story coming up. And, of course, we'll have our transgender segment as well. But first, we're going to watch this together from Chemical Free Body.
Tired of struggling with low energy? We get it. That's why we created Organic Energy Juice. You'll have natural energy all day, and you'll never struggle with low energy again. In just 2 minutes, you can restore your natural energy without chemicals, without stimulants, no toxins, and there is no crash. You shouldn't have to struggle with low energy, and with the Organic Energy Juice, you won't. So if you're struggling with low energy, buying Organic Energy Juice is the right decision. Go to chemicalfreebody.com, use the discount code PBJ, and get your Organic Energy Juice today.
For those of you watching on WD American's live Facebook feed, thank you for watching us. We are reading your comments, so please keep them coming. And if you're watching on any of the Talk Red platforms, thank you for finding us there. I'm Booker Scott, along with Matt Palumbo. Together we are Palumbo Booker Justified, the PB&J podcast. And let's have our sports segment. Matt, let's talk about this guy. Have you ever seen this guy at all? He is from Kenya. He is now 37 years old. Obviously, he played there for the Indianapolis Colts. He played for some other teams as well. His name is Daniel Ogama Adanga, and he's 37 years old. Guess what happened to him?
He got deported.
He did.
Nice.
Because
How did I know?
He overstayed his visa. His visa ran out years ago, and ICE Chicago removed this criminal illegal alien, and he's from Kenya. And he was arrested multiple times by Indiana law enforcement over the past 9 years for crimes including felony intimidation, battery, disorderly conduct. And he was convicted of criminal mischief with damage in 2020. He was sentenced then to 364 days in jail. His most recent criminal charges fall under the Laken-Riley Act. And because of the Laken-Riley Act, we're able to get this guy out of here.
Awesome.
Thank goodness. Yeah. Here's a better picture of him, maybe. I don't know. He's a
great-looking guy.
Yeah, he's tough looking. But we are continuing to deport people, and I know people get frustrated and they think that Donald Trump isn't doing good enough when it comes to deportations, but you have to look at the backlog of asylum hearings. There are 3.5 million of them, and it's going to take a while. Trump has had some good wins recently in the courts, though, on this. We had the temporary order that was upheld by a circuit court this week, actually. So we're still winning some of those. Donald Trump is winning some of those.
Yeah. And I also consider the counterfactual. I mean, there was illegals pouring in to the tune of 20,000 a week under Biden at the border. And then he did all the other shenanigans of giving temporary status, letting people overstay visas. But let's say 20,000 a week. Even if Trump wasn't deporting anyone, and obviously he is, it's still 20,000 fewer people every single week that are invading the country. And yes, I mean, obviously, I wish the deportations were 10 times higher than what they are. I'm not going to lie, I am disappointed, but at least it's in a positive direction. As for the NFL, it's the existence of the NFL and its players is the best argument against the claim that poverty causes crime and wealth gets rid of it. Yeah. Because it's all these millionaires and each and every one of them is a criminal somehow. It's incredible.
Did you happen to see any of Donald Trump's cabinet meeting that took place Friday?
I actually missed that. No.
Did you? Okay, well, let's go through a little bit of it. Here is Donald Trump talking about the success that they have had, what they came into the office in the White House with, following up Joe Biden in the highest inflation ever. Here is a little bit of this video.
Gender mutilation of your children and chaos and bedlam all over the world.
Well, I don't know what's happening here, Matt. We'll see if we can.
All right. You can read his lips. He's
please, you're going to have to at this point. I think it's really low, but let me try it again.
People that, in many cases, you don't want. They were murderers. They were drug dealers. They were people that you do not want. But now we have the strongest border in American history, and for the last 15 months, the report just came out again. We've had no people coming in through our southern borders.
Can you hear that? Okay,
Yeah.
I'm gonna step in here and let everybody know what he said because it is really light. I'm sorry that it's so
I heard
low.
it, but yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, he's just talking about the border and the fact that nobody is coming in the border and how bad these people are, and we just saw that with that former NFL football player. And that's what he was talking about there. And he went on to talk about how bad the economy was, the highest inflation. Cumulative inflation, Matt, for the 4 years of Joe Biden was 20.1%.
But here's the problem with that number. If you actually break down the consumer price index and all of its components, the portion for healthcare went down by 30% in the statistics under Biden. Now, my healthcare almost doubled during that time period. And yet that's a substantial percentage of how the CPI is calculated, the consumer price index. So that one variable going down 30% when it really close to doubled, and I'm speaking anecdotally, but I imagine it's probably in the same ballpark for everyone else. That screws up the whole equation. Like everything I buy is up 50+%. So it's at the point where if it was 20%, I'd be grateful. But I don't think there's a single person watching this who's going, no way, Matt, it was only 20%. It's probably 50 to 100% everyone watching this, what they actually experienced.
Yeah. And the Fed, they met this week. They did not lower interest rates. And we have a new Fed chairman. This was his first meeting in Kevin Warsh, and they voted 9-3. The Board of Governors did, to not change the interest rate. We also had a report on inflation, which was higher. It was about 3.7%. But yet that's due to energy, and that's due to what's going on in Iran. And we're going to talk about Iran here in a few minutes, and the Middle East, because there is some good news coming out about some peace and Hamas and Gaza and Israel. And we'll get to that in a few minutes. But I want to play this from J.D. Vance from that cabinet meeting talking about the fraud that they have discovered. Donald Trump teased that something big is going to be coming from J.D. Vance and his team with the fraud.
Just since the beginning of the fraud task force that I started under the president's leadership and direction, we have identified $230 billion of fraud that's being perpetrated against the American people, and we have halted already $56 billion of that. It's sometimes hard. Once the money has already gone out the door, it's hard to get it back, but stopping it from going out the door is how we save the American people. $56 billion, and of course we're going to keep on working on that. Just today, Mr. President, we will announce 17 new anti-fraud actions that will total about $1/3 billion, and that's added to the $230 billion that we've already uncovered. And I want to just talk for the benefit of the American people about why do we care so much about this? Because what I always try to remind people is that fraud has two victims. So to give one concrete example, there is a program that is administered by Medicaid. And that program ensures that low-income moms and low-income babies have access to neonatal care. Now, I think most Americans probably share my view that this is one of the great things about the United States of America, that if we see a baby and we see a young mother that requires help, we help our fellow Americans. That's a good thing. It's something that we should be proud of. And yet, there is a program that has defrauded the moms and the babies who benefit from these. You've gotten people who've gotten rich by setting up false companies that are providing false services. So who loses in that equation? Number one, of course, is the American taxpayer that is $230 billion.
And then the baby, obviously, and the family. So that's a lot of money. That's a lot of fraud. And I know that, going back to Fauci earlier in this hour, everybody wants accountability. And that's another part of this that I started out this hour with John Adams and the disintegration of democracy in a constitutional republic. Without transparency, without accountability, then you run the risk of that complacency that then creates what we're having right now with the socialists gaining some ground. So I think $230 billion plus another, what did he say? 200 billion? Is that what he said?
Something like that. Yeah.
It's a lot of money, isn't it?
Enormous. Yeah. Listen, I think a lot of people on our side have this idea that there's so much fraud that if we got rid of it, like that alone would balance the budget. Unfortunately, that's not enough. But if it's $500 billion, like he said, it's a pretty good start. I mean, that closes a double-digit percentage of it. And even if it didn't, it's still $500 billion that can be used for literally anything else other than giving free stuff to people who probably hate us.
Yeah. One more from the cabinet, and we'll move on from this cabinet meeting. It took place Friday.
They've been Very good. They've been very good about it. Most people said that would be a deal that would be undoable. Now, will it go through its ups and downs? It's a very complex situation over there. The people are very complex.
Now, he is talking about the peace deal between Hamas and Israel in Gaza. This is something that you and I talked about on the radio show quite a bit. And to me, it's like Iran plays rope of the dope. And I don't know if you remember that. That's something that Muhammad Ali did that. He would go up against the ropes.
I know what you mean.
And he would just let someone pummel him until they were tired, and then he would come out and just destroy them. Mm-hmm. And that's what Iran does, I think, through this whole process. They, play along and, okay, we're going to have peace. And Hamas, being a proxy of Iran, when they did this peace deal, you and I both talked about it, that it's going to be difficult to take the arms away from Hamas and from Iran. And to this point, they have not done that yet. And I think that what Donald Trump is talking about is really, really important. And this is his peace deal. What are they called? The
Abraham Accords, you think?
No, the Board of Peace. Remember the Board of Peace that he put together. That's what did this. And Netanyahu is quiet about it, but I want to go back and play the beginning of this video for you guys, because in the beginning of it, he is asked a question specifically about the Board of Peace and what this peace deal is.
Many cases, wonderful.
Have assurances from Israel that they are on board with this deal. And what comes first? Does Israel pull back and then Hamas disarms, or does Hamas need to disarm and then Israel leaves Gaza?
We do have an understanding with Israel. Israel is very happy about it. Israel helped us with it. And they've been very good. They've been very good about it. Most people said that would be a deal that would be undoable. Now, will it go through its ups and downs? It's a very complex situation over there. The people are very complex and difficult. In many cases wonderful, in many cases not.
So, Matt, this is a big deal if they do it. And going back to what we used to talk about is that I don't think Hamas was ever going to give up their big arms, and they had not. We're talking about missiles and drones and those type of armaments, not the smaller rifles and things like that, because they did do that. And now we're to this point where Hamas is, and what ultimately will happen is a Palestinian government will be in Gaza, and then the Board of Peace can come in and rebuild Gaza. That is the plan here. So we'll have to keep watching. And what she specifically was asking there of President Trump is Israel on board, and are they going to do what's required of them, which they have to get out of the area beyond a yellow line there. So now what comes first? That's the question. That's what they're asking. Do Hamas, do they give up their armaments first before Israel moves? And I think that's what Israel is going to require.
It's tough because we had a ceasefire however many months ago, and from what I'm seeing, it seems like both sides have violated it like hundreds and hundreds of times.
That goes back to the beginning of 2025.
It goes back to the beginning of time, probably, with these kind of people. But
you're right. That's a good point.
So that's what it comes down to. I mean, there are certain, like, from the Palestinian perspective, there are some Israelis that are talking about trying to build settlements in the Gaza Strip. So they're going to definitely seize on that and say, well, you guys are going to try to take land from us, so why would we trust you? So this, to be honest, I don't think this is even a solvable crisis in any meaningful sense. These people are 10,000 years from now, these people are still going to hate each other. It's going to be, do they tolerate each other to a different degree, really?
Yeah, but, or the end of time.
So the end of probably one of the two. Yeah, that's where we're at.
But I wonder, does this maybe trigger something that Iran, because of the pressure that America has put on them financially, and they can no longer supply Hamas with the weapons that they would need? Is that maybe saying
that's what happened? That's what happened to Syria. Russia no longer could prop up Assad, and then their new president with his ragtag group just marched to the capital, took it over, and that was it. So same with Afghanistan. You just create a vacuum, and it's actually pretty easy to really take over.
Yeah. So now you have Hamas maybe there, and maybe this is an opportunity for the Palestinian people to
find someone else.
I have their own government.
Because it is easy to say, like, listen, they all voted for Hamas, so they got themselves into this. There are there is a time where that is true. But I think Hamas got 45% of the vote of the Palestinians. But you have to realize the average Palestinian is very young, meaning a lot of them that are there today weren't even old enough to vote in that election. Now, I'm sure they probably ideologically align, but the majority actually did not vote for them that are alive today in the area. So a lot of them, listen, I'm not going to deny a lot of them believe really, really horrible things, but listen, it's just a horrible situation really for everyone involved.
Well, regardless of what's going on in Iran, if this deal with the Board of Peace can be pulled off, Donald Trump is going to have to be given a lot of credit for
he won't,
making
but he
this
does.
happen.
He should. Yeah.
No, you're right. He won't. And eventually the Iran situation, conflict, war, whatever you want to call it, it too will come to an end. And it sounds like that at any moment, maybe this weekend, that Donald Trump is going to really escalate things militarily there in Iran. So we'll watch for that as well. What about a transgender moment? Are you ready for that?
I can't wait.
Well, let's get this one up on stage. We have this
transaction. That's a New York Post headline style.
Well, it's unauthorized transaction. This teacher, and I believe it's in St. Johns County, Florida. I'm in Florida. I used to live in St. Johns County, which would be St. Augustine, Florida, Ponte Vedra, that area. But I've also seen that this took place in Jacksonville, which is, 15 miles north of there. So I'm not sure. I don't know that it matters. This guy is, This guy is a teacher, first year. He's 3 weeks in and he gets fired because they say that, I guess some parent complained about it and that he was a transgendered person. And he doesn't say he's transgendered. To me, he's like a lumberjack or something. That doesn't make him transgender. The attorney says he's intersex. Do you know what that means?
So intersex is, of all the things that trans people say, it's the one thing I think is actually legitimate, in that, like, there is a fraction of a fraction of a fraction of a percent of men that might be born without a penis or something like that, and that's categorized as intersex. And trans activists will claim this is proof of at least a third gender. No real arguments for the other infinite genders, but they'll say this is proof of a third one. And it's obviously not. I mean, there's a dozen or so human beings born with tails every year. Does that prove that these 12 people are a different species of human? It's like, no, it's a genetic anomaly. It does not prove a new category. So, my point being, if this person actually is intersex, if they actually are a man, but somehow were born with both parts or something, that does happen in these extremely, extremely rare cases.
I don't know how we got here. We got to a point.
You picked this story.
I did pick this story, but I didn't think you were going to go with humans born with tails.
Well, I'm trying to make an analogy to, you're not a whole new category because you're an anomaly. You're an anomaly within a category.
Now I'm rethinking all the people that identify as a cat. Well, maybe they have a tail. Maybe there is truth. This guy's name is Shepard Scalf, and he said he never had any warning or indication of poor performance in his 3 weeks before he was fired from Patriot Oaks Academy, which is a K-8 school in St. Johns County, which would be Ponte Vedra and St. Augustine. And the attorney, he thinks that they have a pretty good case. Matt, I don't know that they don't. I don't know.
Yeah,
that
I actually think he might win this one. Just because and this is separate, but I don't like that you can get fired because one teacher complained about you. Because if you if you go to, I don't know, a YouTube video of a cat being rescued from a tree on fire, there's going to be one dislike on it. Like, no matter what the category, someone's going to complain and have a problem. And I feel like it should have to be that plus something documented. And that if this person is not propagandizing children, I don't see the issue. I mean, if this person was legitimately transgender, I don't really trust those people around children. But if you were, because I do think being trans is a choice. I don't think it's a real thing. I think it's. And I think to a large extent, that itself is a political statement. This, if you really were born in this weird, crazy way and are not talking about it, I don't know if that's really a problem there.
Well, here's the thing. It says he was born with Swyer syndrome. We're going to learn something here. We're going to learn it together. It's a rare genetic condition in which babies appear female at birth with a uterus, vagina, and fallopian tubes, but they have XY chromosomes, typically associated with male development. They don't develop ovaries or testicles, and they don't go through puberty without hormone therapy. So this is like a real syndrome, obviously. So I don't think the guy should have lost his job. I think that the St. Johns County School is probably going to have to pay Mr. Scalf is his name, I think. They're going to have to pay him some money, I believe, on this one.
I would imagine too. Yeah.
It's unfortunate that he actually lost his job,
And then
or she.
the thing is too, you really can't fire people for as many reasons as you'd think, in that there are a lot of stories now of teachers that were fired for making comments celebrating Charlie Kirk's murder that are getting six-figure payout, sometimes seven-figure. And I was under the impression that you could fire for those reasons. And if you can't fire for even something as disturbing as that, I think even if this person was trans and got fired, I think it would still be a problem. I mean, listen, if I was the school, I would just not hire them in the first place to avoid this problem. Like, I would not want my kid in a transgender teacher's classroom, because I know it correlates with all this other stuff. You're never going to have a trans teacher and they're going to be like, you know what, kids, today we're going to talk about how great a job Trump is doing and free market capitalism and the beauty of Christianity. It's not happening. It correlates only with left-wing insanity, which also proves that it's not a real thing, because why would you always have all these other characteristics politically if it was just something that happened biologically, you know? Anyway, it's enough tranny stuff for today.
We do have some primaries coming up this week. On August 4th and then again August 11th. We're going through the primary season. Eventually, we're going to get to that big midterm election in November that we talked about here in this hour. And Matt, what else do we look forward to this week? I know I always ask you. I know you always say Iran, and I think that's obvious that the Iran situation is something we're going to talk about every week. The Senate is still in session right now. I'm waiting for them to leave to see if they'll actually not show up and bang the gavel to prevent Donald Trump from doing recess appointments. Yeah. If he would leave, he could do something. He has done none this time in this term. And if you compare it to other presidents, you're talking about hundreds of appointments done through recess appointments. But for some reason, John Thune and the Republicans are blocking Donald Trump from doing that. So I'm going to watch for that this week to see when they leave. Will they actually leave and recess and leave everybody leave?
I'm looking forward to see if there's a follow-up on Fauci. I am curious to see, is it true that he can't legally plead the fifth and he's exempt? And then, we'll see where it goes from there, which senators are in favor, which are against. I think it's going to be probably a party line vote, and I'm sure there'll be like two Republicans that disappoint us, but we'll see.
Well, coming up August 4th, you have Kansas and Michigan in primaries, Missouri, also Virginia. So that's coming up August 4th. And then August 6th is that wouldn't be right. August 6th, Tennessee's coming up also. And then August 11th, there are several more primaries. So watch for that. We want to thank you so much for watching the PB&J podcast. It's so great to have you with us. Keep the comments coming. If you're watching on WD Americans on Facebook Live or Talk Red, you can also follow us. Matt, do you want to throw out your Twitter or X handle? I don't believe we've ever done this on one of these shows, but we have a minute or two, so let's do that now.
So Matt Palumbo 12.
What's the 12 for?
Well, I actually got the original Matt Palumbo handle like 15 years ago and then deleted it, and then someone else took it. So I thought Matt Palumbo 1. Well, it's not right because I'm not really the first.
Right.
Matt Palumbo 2. I don't want to be the second Matt Palumbo, so I just went with 12. I combined.
Yeah, you went nuts, didn't you?
I went totally
on
nuts.
12. Yeah.
On 12.
Oh, Matt Palumbo.
No one reads my feed at all. It's okay. You don't have to follow me.
He's a best-selling author. He wrote Spygate with Dan Bongino. He wrote Man Behind the Curtain about the secret network of George Soros. His latest book is The Heir, about Alex Soros. But you also wrote Fact-Checking the Fact-Checkers. What was the
Great
Dumb
book.
and Dumber about de
It was
Blasio?
Cuomo and de Blasio destroying New York. And turns out it's going to get way worse now.
Right.
So I wasn't even quite like it's gotten so bad that when Cuomo was running, I was like, I guess I'd vote for this guy. I wrote a whole book about why he sucks, but it'll be decline of this rate versus that rate. So
maybe it's time to write another one on Mamdani.
We'll see. Yeah.
And you can listen to me Monday through Friday on America Out Loud Talk Radio, available on iHeart. All you have to do is go to iHeartRadio, search America Out Loud Talk Radio, or you can find the show The Truth Be Told with Booker Scott anywhere where you get a podcast. We want to thank you for watching the PB&J podcast. Have a great week.
You have been watching a no-budget production, the PB&J podcast.